give you 7 quick tips how to get media coverage for your business.
From a former journalism.
From a bootleg journalism dropout. And I want to thank Mark Lindsell from the Loudspeaker podcast for sharing these tips. Number 1, build your narrative using your own media. So that's similar to what Cope talked about, how we use the Soapbox's platform to tell our narrative about the laundry, dry cleaning, and sneaker cleaning services that we offered to get increased exposure with potential customers, as well as with other businesses in the neighborhood and with a more established media brands. Number 2, identify the most relevant journalist. So whatever your trade is, if there's a trade publication, know that. If there's a certain target demographic that you service, know where those people are going for media and then follow those journalists. Number 3, set up media monitoring. So if you use Google, like most of us do, you say Google, set up Google alerts for the key journalists and media outlets that are germane to your business and to your customer base. Number 4, practice PR tactics for winning press coverage. We're fortunate because we have a professional public relations person who's been on our team. We also have a copywriter so that we're able to take advantage of some of those PR hacks. Check out.
We've got a PR
podcast.
person on our team?
We do.
Oh, all right.
Act like you know.
I need to find them.
Number 5.
I need to meet them.
Set SMART goals for the type of media coverage that you want. Make them specific, manageable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So if you say, I want to touch 5,000 eyeballs before the end of June so that I can increase awareness about our new national sneaker cleaning initiative, then those are SMART goals for media coverage that you can then follow, track, and see how well you deliver on them. Number 6, start building relationships with the press. And I'll tell you how that worked for me. And then number 7, pitch to journalists. So you talk about some of the areas where Johnson Security has been covered. When I first took over, we were featured in the Daily News because we went to an event hosted by the SBA and SCORE, which is formerly Service Corps of Retired Executives. And I got to work with a coach. So they followed me in the session where I sat with the coach and talked about how the goals that I had and the help that he gave us. We were then featured in Fortune magazine because of our affiliation with the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. Fortune covered the program, and they included a photo where I was sitting beside Mark Morial of the National Urban League. Hey, Mark. As well as on the other side of Mr. Warren Buffett. And that's what I call the money shot, because they didn't have to say anything about the business outside of my name and the business name being captured in the caption. And people saw it and were like, oh, wow, you're in Fortune. Phone started ringing. We're fortunate because one of our team members has very strong relationships with Black Enterprise. And so we were featured in the print magazine back in 2013. And then as a result of being featured, we were ultimately awarded the Small Family Business of the Year award in 2013 by Black Enterprise. But there are people that we know, including Crypto J, Jamal Solomon, who saw that story years ago and was encouraged to take action in establishing and growing his business. Then we had the chance to be included on MSNBC's Your Business, which is no longer on air, but thanks to JJ Ramberg and the great team over at Your Business, because they did a feature on us. Was that back in like 2015?
Yeah.
Because they had heard about us, because they're always looking for content. They read a story about us somewhere else and was like, oh, we'd like to feature you. And in the time that I was on the set, I got to meet the booker, who happens to be a member of the same sorority that I'm in. So get to know people that are in the media, and you never know when something comes up. So that was 2015. Fast forward to 2017, she needed somebody to be on at the last minute because they had a last minute cancellation. She called and was like, can you come to the studio tomorrow to give us a 1-minute tip for a segment that we're shooting? I was like, sure. Sent car service, did my face and makeup, my makeup and hair. And after that, I went on to be on your like 5 or 6 additional episodes of your business because I had an existing relationship with the booker. I had good rapport with the host, JJ Ramberg. And then I was available at the last minute when they had other cancellations. So I could show up, perform, give an actionable tip, and at the same time, talk about some of the things that our business was doing.
Most importantly, you did a good job. Let's start about that.
Yeah, you always got to do a good job.
I'm sure when they did research on you, they didn't see any like girls going wild videos with you on Facebook or anything that would tarnish their brand if they had you on, or wouldn't give credibility to their message or what you're saying. So
yes,
I'm sure that helped.
How you conduct yourself on and off the camera matter. The things that you say on your social platforms, as well as how you perform in your business, do make a difference. So number one, do a great job of whatever your business is. Let the work speak for itself, and then tell the story. I guess I should have started with that. One of my favorite local publications is Crane's New York Business. And so they are very intent about regional and local coverage. So we've been able to participate in a couple of local events that they've had. And then we got an award from them. So we were included, and we also bought an ad when we were awarded one of the family businesses of the year.
Paid media.
So that paid advertising kind of substantiated the free coverage that we were getting, or the earned media coverage that we were getting. And then more recently, my friend Chanel invited me to be on her Follow the Leader podcast. It was the first time I was on a podcast.
Earned media.
And so, it's just been like a trickle down effect from there. I don't know if you go to a lot of events, but what I typically see on the event invitation, in the fine print at the bottom, it says, check here if you want to be contacted by media. It'll also say, oh no, we might use your image. If you don't want us to use your image, let us know. So there are lots of hidden opportunities for you to share your story, to talk about your experience and your business. In the events that you attend, if you're applying for awards, the same thing. They have that little box at the bottom. So if you've ever seen the Inc. 5000, that's one of the questions on the application at the very bottom. Would you be interested in being featured in media coverage about your business? And that's what landed me on the Inc. Women's Conference a few years ago. And people think I did a TED Talk. No, I didn't do a TED Talk. I did an Inc. Talk for the Inc. Women's Forum. And they just continue to run the video on their website. And when people see it, they think that was my very own TED Talk. But that's thanks to earned media from the Inc. brand. So those are just a few tips of things that you can do, and how I've used those actual tips in our business to get free media coverage. What do you see as some of the consistent themes of business owners you work with who have successfully expanded their businesses or their brands?
Service and quality. So the quality of their service or product, and the consistency. So the quality of the service and product, and the consistency in which they perform it or deliver it. So we can use Sydney Sweets as an example.
Okay. Shout out to Sydney Sweets. Jermaine and Sydney, what's good, friends?
So when we get their cakes, like we did the cupcake jars many moons ago, and we gave them out to all of our clients. The product the presentation was on point, and the taste of the product was on point. Then we ordered some for ourselves, for the team. We gave some away to some other people as gifts, and the product looked, again, presentation wise, was on point, and the taste was there. So it was a consistent product throughout the years that we've been
working with them, patronizing them.
All right. I would say both, and as well as consuming it, because I eat that stuff too. It's like crack. Yeah. And it's been, so the quality of the product and the service has been consistent, and it's been good. So, you want to be consistent, but also you want it to be good. Like, you don't want to have consistent crap. So yeah. Like, I'm sorry. Like, some people are consistently not good at stuff. Like, and you should recognize that and not do it. Like, and if that is an intricate part of your business, you need to figure out, do I need to outsource it? Do I need to hire someone to do it? You know, whatever it might be. But if you need it done for your business, you have to figure out how do you get good at it.
Right.
You know, whether you do it, you bring somebody else in, or you out, whatever it might be. But you have to get good at it if you need it.
Well, I'm just going to put a sticky note right here in this point of the conversation, because during COVID, we've heard so many people and business owners talking about that pivot. What is the pivot? What are they going to do differently? And so that's led to an increase of people expanding the scope of their businesses. And, you know, the pandemic made a lot of people have to do it, but that doesn't mean that everybody did it correctly. And so,
Yep.
And so, can you give an example of maybe a story that you read, maybe not necessarily someone that you know personally, who has expanded and the results have been not as successful?
I mean, I know of some people, and I won't, you know, put them out there like that, but who are in variety of industries, whether it's a service industry or like the food industry or beverage, that they pivoted, you're saying, during COVID. And let me put it this way. I don't think they weren't as successful as they could have been because they pivoted during COVID. I truly believe, from what I saw and just from what I heard from them, that they did this pivot during COVID, and then they didn't commit to it 100%. Not even 100%. They didn't commit to it like 80, 85%. So they did it, and then they didn't see any results, like, I don't know, in like, you know, a week or two. And they were just like, yeah, you know, I'm going to, you know, start selling bricks now instead of, you know, selling cars or whatever. I was like, they didn't stick with it. And because they didn't stick with it and be consistent, as we talked about earlier, they never saw any results from it. They didn't see, you know, is this a viable pivot for us? I think they tapped out too soon on it because they didn't commit to it 100%. I mean, that was the, you know, biggest thing that I noticed and saw or heard.
So would you say that there's a such thing as expanding too much or expanding too soon?
100%. Like, I mean, you know, we could talk about that from your perspective, like with JSB earlier, when we were getting a lot of calls in business. Like, what was your take on it as far as people were calling for all types of security business to do? And we talked about niching down in the last episode, but, you know, what was your take and experience on when the phone was just ringing off the hook and people were asking about special events, secure construction, right, residential?
I'm a firm believer that you have to focus, and if you have too many visions, then it becomes D-vision. Like, literally your vision is split in half. And so you really have to find a way to focus on what the logical expansion is going to be for you. Even during COVID, right? We've seen a significant increase in the amount of services Johnson Security provides in healthcare facilities. But we literally had days where 4 or 5 different healthcare facilities would call and say, we want you to start tomorrow.
Now.
And in some cases, they would say, we want one person 40 hours a week, which is manageable. I can go down in the basement and find a person that can work 40 hours a week. In many cases, they said, we want somebody to be here off hours, 128 hours a week. So when our staff isn't on site, we want your person there. But in some cases, we had facilities that were asking for anywhere from 5 to 20 people per shift, which is a significant lift in terms of recruiting, in terms of onboarding and in training before we could dispatch those people. So that's nothing that we would be able to do overnight.
Well, we could, but the question is, are they going to get some consistent quality people? Because we could easily just go find some Joe Schmo. You got a license? Yeah. Come here. Let me check your credentials. You're registered with the state. Okay. Fill out this paperwork and go to work tomorrow. We could, but is that going to be good service?
Right. If we think about what we've already discussed so far in terms of what we define as growth, what are the success determinants in committing, those opportunities wherein they might have been grand in scope and scale weren't necessarily the best fit for how we do business, how our employees are able to respond to client requests, and then what the clients were looking for. So there were some cases where we had to say, no, thank you. We made every attempt.
Oh, we told them, listen, can you wait 2 weeks, a week,
and
whatever.
they're like, oh no. Matter of fact, we had one person, one organization that they started off with a really high number of people, and then they whittled that number down and whittled that number down. And then they were like, we no longer need your services. It's like, okay.
Right. And it's not like we're selling widgets here. Like
these are real people.
These are people. So they're counting on the hours to go to work, which goes back to what we talked about before. You got to make sure it's always a good fit between your expectations and your potential or your client's expectations. You know, if they're thinking about one thing and you're thinking about another, it's not going to be a good fit. Right.
And then we had the same organization call back, was it 4 weeks ago? And they said they wanted a gazillion people for a billion man hours. And they asked for a proposal. We submitted them a proposal. We posted the job ads.
People was lining up like crazy.
We had applicants coming in the door.
Then they call.
And then I called back and said, okay, so what's the status? They were like, oh, we're just collecting quotes.
But that's not what you said when you first called. You was like, oh, we need these people to start next week. So make sure you're in alignment with it. But going back to your original point, you were talking about, is it possible to expand? You said too fast?
Too soon and too much.
100%. Like if you expand too fast or too much, it could put you out of business. So depending on what type of business you have or service, and then what your payment terms are, you could get a whole bunch of business really fast, right? And I personally know of people who got interest from, they sell products, and they got interest from retailers to say, we want to put your product on the shelf. That's an awesome thing. But the question is, the thing is, if you don't have that product sitting in inventory, which I hope you don't have too much sitting in inventory,
because that's money.
That's money sitting around, or you don't have your supply chain is very long, or you don't have the revenue to fulfill that order, then you can't put that product on the shelf, right? Or if you're in a service-based business and you need to hire people to perform the duties, and you hire them and they perform the work, but then you have like a net 30 payment agreement. So you have to front all that payroll, and depending what kind of work they're doing, like they need supplies and materials, you have to front those supplies and materials and then wait to get paid. So if you got a whole influx of clients all of a sudden and you have to put out all this money to get those jobs started, maybe you take a deposit from them, et cetera, et cetera. Or maybe you're fortunate enough to get them to pay in full. God bless you. Because I can't think of any service or vendors we use. Maybe, a few SaaS products where we pay in full before the work is actually done.
Right.
So it could put you out of business because you have to float it. You have to have the capital to start those new products.
If you are an employer and you have employees and someone claims unemployment, that they're deserving of unemployment insurance, that there are typically steps that you can take if you think that claim is baseless. And so what we typically will do is we'll send a response to the agency and let them know the situation under which that person was released, if they were released, or the situation in the schedule of the person if they're still working, right? Because there, in some cases, if you're working part-time, if you're going to school, you may be eligible. Cool in a gang. But like you said, there's somebody saying, I just don't feel like working. I'm going to stay home till COVID is over. When it may never be over. That's not legitimate. And so I got frustrated because each month, especially while we were working every day and some folks were sitting at home waiting for COVID to end, we would get a detailed itemized list of the withdrawals from our account for unemployment insurance benefits. And the list sometimes would be 3-sided, 3 pages long.
3 pages.
3 pages. And then it's double columns. So for each page, it's 2 listings per line. And I would go through and say, that person quit, but that person's still working. And so for each person, we would have to send a response to let the state know that we didn't think that there was a real basis for unemployment.
Posted.
And I didn't hear any response back from the state. So I was like, oh, okay. I was about to get about it. And so I said, what can I do? So I wrote a letter to the governor. I wrote a letter to the mayor, and I wrote a letter to the commissioner of labor here in New York State. And it had to be close to Christmas. So I sent the letters off, and the governor's office, the Department of Labor got back to me, and they were like, yeah, we see that you've been writing us letters. Like, yeah. They said, oh, yeah, we got at least 84 letters about uninsurance employment claims against your firm. I'm like, yeah. They're like, wow, your letters are pretty thorough. I'm like, yeah, because I'm not here for that. I'm not here for the fraud. Anyway, just know, if you're taking advantage of the system because you think the system's not watching, somebody's watching. And when they come back, they're going to come back for vengeance. And Lord help you, because it might not be nice.
You want to manage those claims that come up, especially when you know they're either fraud or someone is claiming when they were let go due to cause or they chose to leave. So that way you keep your percentage low, so you're not, putting more of your funds to that.
And one last note on unemployment insurance for you, if you have employees or intend to have employees,
payroll.
Don't play with not sending your uninsurance payments in on time, because there is no mercy for late payments or non-payments. They will come at you with a vengeance, and the penalties and the fees are extreme. The interest is extremely high.
Yeah, it is.
So remember that, like he said, it's basically a tax. It's not your money. It's the government's money. Give it to them on time, and you spare yourself a lot of headache, because you don't want to be out of the business of being in business on a technicality.
Yeah. And so just respond to everything. You get the notices, fill them out. Fight the ones you can, look at what the potential charges are, and then some of them you just let go, because you got to balance out your time and effort, because you'll be spending time away from your business fighting a claim for potential charges of we've gotten some for $3 and change a week, and I'm just like, I don't care. Even though I know the person, like whatever them separating wasn't for, it was for cause, let me put it that way, based using the language they use. And they were like, oh, they'll get $20 a week or they'll get $90 a week. I'm like, it's not worth the effort and time to put into it versus someone who potentially gets I don't know, 600 or whatever, depending on what their salary was. So just manage your time, but check everything, respond to the claims, and look at the reports they send you. I think they send it on a monthly or quarterly basis that shows you all the charges that are coming into your account with a breakdown. Make sure you review it. Anything that doesn't look right, point it out. Reach out to them by phone or write them a letter. Like, you'll be surprised. So payroll, checks,
fraud. Positive pay. If you bank with one of the major banks, please take advantage of positive pay, whether you pay electronically or with paper check.
You're not familiar with positive pay, it's simple. It's a feature they turn on in your bank account, and they monitor every check that comes through. And as far as I know, there's no extra charge for it at any bank that I've talked to about it so far. They turn it on, and it monitors every check that comes into your account. If the check does not match by number, the payee, and the dollar amount, when I say number, the check number, that the bank will automatically reject it. So the way positive pay works is you either have to input the check manually, any check you write, not a bank check, because if you do it through the bank's website and have the bank send a check for you, then that gets, depending on your bank, check with them, it gets registered automatically because they're generating the check for you. But if you write a check or you print them out in your office, however you produce your checks, when you hand them out to people, you'll need to either upload a spreadsheet into positive pay that shows all the check numbers, all the payee, and the dollar amount. So when they go to cash that check wherever or deposit it, your bank will see it, match it against that list, and say approved or denied. Or you don't have to upload it at all. You will get an alert every day by text and email, if you so choose, by signing up with your bank, that will say you have checks to review. And you log into the portal and you look at each check one by one. You say pay or you say denied. And if you say denied, they kick it back and it gets sent back to the person
presenter.
The presenter. Right. Yeah, presenter.
I'll
But you
just
were
add,
saying
it's not
about
just
positive pay.
it's not just payroll. So positive pays for
Any
check
check.
that you
But
write.
if you depending how many team members you have, you're probably going to write more checks for payroll than anything else, depending on how many people you have on your team and then what your business does.
So protect yourself. Get ACH for payments. You can pay by ACH. You can receive payments by ACH.
Yeah,
but
try to pay people like your vendors.
But keep in mind that
Direct deposit is hard.
Banks have built-in protections. If you have team members, vendors, or whomever who are using check cashing places, those protections typically are not as strong. And their loss prevention people at the check cashing places, sometimes they're unscrupulous. They're like,
yeah, you
they're
don't
like
know who's
really
gonna be
bad
handling
debt
that
collectors. Check. Don't F's with them. Don't. First of all,
you're just open.
I'm not throwing shade on the check cashing industry.
It's just it's more exposure for you because your team member takes the check and cashes it there. You don't know what happens once that check hits that window on their back end process.
Or who is dealing
or
with
who's looking at it. So someone there can just take a picture of the check, in their back office and then get your account and routing number and then print a check, make it to whoever, and then try and cash it somewhere else. So it's a lot of ways. But the other reason positive pay is good too, when people try to double dip on a check you give them. And this is real life, and this is true scenario. So you give a team member a check to deposit. It's their payroll check. I've had it happen countless times. And what they do is they'll use their phone, use their banking app, and you take a picture of it. It's a great feature. I love it. I use it for my personal, and I use it for my business account. So one of my clients writes a check. We take a picture of it using the phone app, and I deposit it. I don't have to worry about going to the bank or going to an ATM. It's huge. I do it right from my desk. I love it. But that convenience opens up the world to it opens up more opportunity for fraud. Here's another one for fraud you want to be careful of. And I don't know of anything to protect it except you, your eyes, and your due diligence. You should be routinely looking at your account, whether it's daily or every other day, and looking at every transaction that comes through. Every morning I open up the banking app on my phone while I'm brushing my teeth or getting ready, or when I get out the shower and I'm like ironing, and I'll scroll through every transaction from the previous day. And they say pending before they hit. And I'll scroll through each one of them and look and say, do I remember writing a check for $12,000? What is this? And then I'm like, oh yeah, that was some equipment we ordered because the team is doing this film shoot. And they gave me a $12,000 budget, Focus. Psych, we spending $12,000 on a film shoot with some next level stuff going on here. But those days are coming, best believe it. But you have to go through it and look. And the reason I say that is because you give someone a check, they have your account number and your routing number. There is nothing that can stop them from paying their personal bills with your account and routing number.